Okay, it's been a while. We had a nice successful common assessment, and it's time to get back into our videos, our video lectures here. So we're going to talk about Intro to Imperialism, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so building support for imperialism. Beginning in the 1880s, Americans wanted the United States to become a world power. Their change in attitude was a result of economic and military competition from other nations and a growing feeling of cultural superiority. Imperialism is the economic and political domination of a strong nation over weaker nations. This view is held by many European nations as they expanded their powers overseas. To protect their investments, European nations exerted control over the territories where they had invested capital and sold products. Some of these areas became colonies, while others became protectorates. In a protectorate, the imperial power allowed local rulers to remain in control while protecting them against rebellion and invasion. Okay? So in return, local rulers had to accept advice from the Europeans on how to govern their country. Americans wanted to develop overseas markets to keep the economy strong. Obviously, you want to keep your economy going. Social Darwinists, they argued that as nations competed, only the strongest would survive. There's that social Darwinist popping back up again. Okay? Americans used these ideas to justify expanding American power overseas. John Fiske, a historian and writer, wrote about Anglo-Saxonism. It was the idea that the English-speaking nations had superior character, ideas, and systems of government and were destined to dominate the planet. Josiah Strong, he also linked missionary work to the Anglo-Saxonism and convincing many Americans to support imperialism. Okay, our first foray into imperialism was expansion into the Pacific area. Americans expanded across the Pacific Ocean and towards East Asia looking for overseas markets. Americans hoped to trade with China and Japan, but Japan only allowed trade with the Chinese and the Dutch. In 1852, President Franklin Pierce ordered Commodore Matthew C. Perry to travel to Japan to negotiate a trade treaty. In 1854, the Japanese, impressed by American technology and power, signed a treaty opening two ports to American trade. It's kind of a misnomer. Matthew Perry basically said, you have to do this. And by the 1890s, Japan had a powerful navy and set out to build its own empire in Asia. So they kind of piggybacked off us a little bit there. And following an 1872 recession in Hawaii, the United States exempted Hawaiian sugar from tariffs in 1875. Okay, these are all examples of our expansion into the Pacific here. Now, when the treaty later came up for renewal, the Senate insisted that Hawaii give the United States exclusive rights to a naval base at Pearl Harbor. The trade treaty led to a boom in the Hawaiian sugar industry. And the McKinley Tariff, then in 1890, gave subsidies to sugar producers in the United States, causing the sale of Hawaiian sugar to decline. As a result, the Hawaiian economy also declined. In 1891, Queen Liliuokalani became the Queen of Hawaii. She disliked the influence of American settlers in Hawaii. And in 1893, a group of planters, supported by U.S. Marines, forced the Queen to give up her power after she unsuccessfully tried to impose a new constitution that reasserted her authority as ruler of the Hawaiian people. The group of planters set up a temporary government and asked the United States to annex the islands. Trade and diplomacy in Latin America. So we're going to shift our focus down into Latin America now. So in the 1800s, the United States wanted to increase its influence in Latin America by increasing the sale of American products in the region. Americans wanted Europeans to realize that the United States was the dominant power in the region. So, Secretary of State James G. Blaine led early efforts to expand American influence in Latin America. He proposed the idea that the United States and Latin America work together in what came to be called Pan-Americanism. In 1889, the first Pan-American Conference was held in Washington, D.C. The goals of the conference were to create a customs union between Latin America and the United States and to create a system for the American nations to work out their disputes peacefully. The Latin Americans rejected both of these ideas. Latin Americans agreed to create the Commercial Bureau of the American Republics, an organization that worked to promote cooperation among the nations of the Western Hemisphere. Today, this organization is called the Organization of American States, or the OAS. Okay, so how do you increase all your power overseas? Well, back then you had to have a very strong navy, so we built a modern navy. Americans were willing to risk war to defend their American interest overseas. Okay, so this led to American support for a large modern navy. Captain Alfred T. Mahan of the United States Navy published his lectures in a book called The Influence of Sea Power Upon History, 1660 to 1783. In the book, he suggests that a nation needed a large navy to protect its merchant ships and to defend its right to trade with other countries. Mahan felt it necessary to acquire territory overseas for naval bases. Remember, ships then run off steam now. Okay. Henry Cabot Lodge and Albert J. Beveridge, two powerful senators, pushed for the construction of a new navy, and by the late 1890s, the United States was on its way to becoming one of the top-ranked naval powers of the world. In the spring of 1898, war began between Spain and the United States, thus bringing us into world preeminence. Okay, and thus concludes your first video for our new unit, Intro to Imperialism, and which will take us all the way up to the Depression era. So, I hope you enjoyed that one. Short one, 6 minutes long. All right, and don't forget you have an Edmodo quiz assigned with that, and make sure you get it done on time. Thanks.